You were not born to live your life on other people's terms. You were not put on this earth to please everyone, to nod when your soul screams no, to say yes, just to avoid the awkward silence. But that's what we've been taught, that saying no is rude, that it's selfish, that it makes you difficult, unkind, ungrateful. So we say yes when we're exhausted. We say yes when we're overwhelmed. We say yes when deep down everything inside us is begging to be honest. And slowly that pattern chips away at us. We start losing ourselves, not in one big moment but in 1,000 quiet compromises. A favor here, a task there, a dinner we didn't want, a call we didn't have time for, a boundary we let someone cross because we didn't want to be the one who made things awkward. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes out of guilt, you say no to yourself. No to your time. No to your energy. No to your peace. And you cannot build a meaningful life on a foundation of resentment. That's what people don't understand. Saying no is not rejection. It's protection. It's clarity. It's alignment. You're not being difficult. You're being deliberate. You're not being selfish. You're being self-aware, because if you keep betraying yourself just to be liked, you'll end up surrounded by people who only love the version of you that betrays yourself. And that's not love. That's performance. That's manipulation. That's you disappearing inside a mask day after day until you no longer recognize your own reflection. But that ends now, because the moment you realize you don't owe anyone your constant availability, you begin to breathe again. You begin to walk through life without carrying everyone else's expectations on your back. You begin to protect your time like it's sacred, because it is. And yes, it will feel strange at first. You'll say no and your heart will race. You'll feel like you're doing something wrong. But that's not guilt, that's growth. That's the old version of you panicking because it's losing control. That's the part of you that was conditioned to be agreeable, even when it hurt. And the only way to break that is to feel it and still stand your ground. Because every time you say no with honesty, you're saying yes to something far more powerful, your self-respect. You're rewriting the script that told you your worth was tied to how useful, compliant, or available you could be. You're reminding yourself that your needs matter, that your time matters, that your energy is not unlimited, and your life is not a currency for approval. And slowly, you start to realize that the people who get offended by your boundaries were the ones who benefited most from you having none. They will guilt you. They will question you. They will say you've changed. And you have, because growth looks like disappointing others, but finally not disappointing yourself. It looks like silence instead of forced conversation. It looks like choosing solitude over fake connection. It looks like taking care of yourself without apologizing for it. Saying no is not just a word, it's a statement. It says, I'm not here to be everything for everyone. It says, I honor my limits. It says, I trust myself enough to protect my peace. And that energy, it changes how you walk into a room. It changes who you attract. It changes how people treat you. Because when you stop people-pleasing, you stop inviting people who only value your compliance. You begin to attract those who respect your truth, who honor your boundaries, who don't need a watered-down version of you to feel comfortable. That is when life begins to shift. Not when you say yes to more, but when you say yes to less, and say it with strength. Because your power was never in how much you could endure. It was always in how clearly you could choose. And now you're choosing differently. There's a peace that comes when you stop explaining yourself, when you no longer feel the need to justify your boundaries to people who never had to explain theirs. When your no doesn't come with a paragraph or a nervous laugh or a nervous glance to see if they're disappointed. It's just no. Clear, clean, complete. Because you finally realize your worth isn't in how many people are pleased with you, but in how true you are to yourself. And being true to yourself isn't always comfortable. It's not always well received. Sometimes it feels like standing still while the world keeps pulling, but that stillness is strength. That resistance is alignment, because the world will always ask for more. One more favor, one more minute, one more compromise. And unless you learn to say no, it will keep taking until there's nothing left of you but burnout and regret. Saying no is how you reclaim your time, your peace, your identity. It's how you break the habit of self-erasure. Because every time you choose discomfort in the short term, you gain freedom in the long term. And freedom is not found in pleasing others. It's found in protecting yourself. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you conscious. Conscious of your limits, conscious of your values, conscious of the fact that your energy is a resource, not a free service. You stop operating from guilt and start moving with grace. You stop reacting to pressure and start responding with purpose. And people will adjust. They always do. The ones who truly care will understand. The ones who don't were never really there for you. They were there for your compliance. And the moment you remove that, they disappear. Let them. Because every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you create space for what does. Space for rest, space for clarity, space for people who see your boundaries, not as walls, but as windows into your self-respect. That space is sacred. It's where your soul breathes again, where your truth has room to echo, where your life begins to align with your spirit, not with other people's opinions. You no longer live by obligation. You live by intention. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You take up space without apology, because your no is no longer a defense. It's a declaration that you're done overgiving, that you're done trying to earn your right to rest, that you're done bending for people who wouldn't even lean for you. It's not personal, it's necessary, it's not cruel, it's clear, and that clarity will cost you some people, but it will return you to yourself, and that's a price worth paying every single time. Most people aren't afraid of the word no. They're afraid of what it might cause, the silence, the distance, the disapproval, because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to how much we're needed, that love means access, that kindness means saying yes. But that belief is the very thing that keeps us trapped in relationships where we're never allowed to rest, trapped in expectations we never agreed to, trapped in patterns where we give and give and give until we quietly begin to break. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone access to you just because they ask. You don't owe anyone a yes just because they expect it. Boundaries are not barriers, they're bridges to your sanity. They're the quiet lines that keep your soul intact. They're the honest declarations of where you end and where someone else begins. And when you don't have them, you lose yourself in the chaos of everyone else's demands. You live on their schedule, you carry their emotions. You respond to their every request as if your life is a menu and you're the service. But you're not here to be everything for everyone. You're here to be something honest for yourself. That might mean fewer people, fewer invitations, fewer meaningless connections. But what you gain is far greater: clarity, freedom, peace. You begin to feel your own life again. You begin to trust your own rhythm again. You stop outsourcing your decisions to guilt and start reclaiming them with grace. You don't over-explain. You don't panic. You don't shrink. You speak simply, firmly, gently. And if someone misunderstands your no, you let them. Because your job is not to make everyone comfortable, it's to be in alignment with your truth. And your truth will not always be convenient for others. That's okay. Let it be inconvenient. Let it shake things up. Let it create space, because that space is where your real life starts. The life where you don't feel heavy every time your phone rings. The life where you don't need to rehearse excuses. The life where you don't need to explain why rest, solitude, and peace matter. That life doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being anchored. And the anchor is your ability to say no with love, no with strength, no without guilt. Because no is not a rejection of others, it's a remembrance of yourself. It's a way of honoring your energy, your time, your focus. And when you protect those things, you protect your future. The future where you're not just surviving, but living light, living whole, living on your own terms. The moment you begin to say no without guilt is the moment you reclaim your inner authority. You stop asking for permission to live your life. You stop looking around the room for approval before choosing yourself. Because you finally understand that saying yes to everything is not generosity, it's self-abandonment. And abandoning yourself to keep the peace is not peace at all. It's a quiet war that plays out inside your own body. The tension, the resentment, the fatigue, the voice that whispers, "Why did I agree to this again?" That voice is the most honest part of you, and it's begging to be heard. Every time you ignore it, you teach yourself that your needs come last, that your truth is negotiable. But now you're choosing to listen. You're learning that real peace doesn't come from keeping everyone happy. It comes from being rooted in your values, grounded in your priorities, unshaken in your self-respect. And yes, the world will still ask. They will still expect. They will still try to pull you in directions that do not align. But now you don't react, you respond. You respond from a place of clarity, of inner calm, of unshakable knowing that your no is not an attack, it's a boundary. And boundaries are not walls. They're filters. They allow in what serves and keep out what drains. You begin to see relationships differently. You begin to see how many people only showed up when your door was always open. How many smiled when your time was theirs, but disappeared when you needed space. And that revelation might sting. But it also sets you free, because you no longer confuse access with connection. You no longer mistake convenience for love. You no longer equate being wanted with being respected. And when you remove those illusions, you stand taller. You move differently. You take up space with quiet confidence. And that confidence is not loud. It's steady. It's the kind that doesn't beg to be seen because it knows what it's worth. You begin to realize that your time is sacred, that your energy is currency, that every yes you give is an investment, and you only invest where there is alignment, not just attachment. You learn that being available 24/7 is not noble, it's unhealthy. That constant giving is not kindness, it's imbalance. And balance is the new boundary. That means rest without shame. Saying no without a backstory, protecting your peace like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. And from this space, you start to build a new life. A life not built on guilt, but on groundedness, not on obligation, but on ownership, not on pleasing, but on purpose. And that life begins the moment you understand this simple truth. No is not a weakness, it's wisdom. You don't need to explain yourself anymore. You don't need to soften your boundaries to protect someone else's comfort. You don't need to sacrifice your peace so others won't feel the sting of your truth. Because now you see it clearly. Your no is not rejection. It's direction. It's how you choose the life you want, moment by moment, decision by decision. It's how you preserve the energy that builds your future. It's how you protect the version of you that you're becoming, not the one that was built to please. And when you own that, something shifts. You stop rushing to rescue people from their own emotions. You stop diluting your message so it's easier for others to swallow. You stop translating your boundaries into apologies, and you stand, clean, firm, calm. You no longer fear being misunderstood because your truth is no longer up for negotiation. You don't speak to be liked, you speak to be real. You don't act to be approved, you act to be whole. And those who cannot meet you there, who cannot accept the version of you that says no when needed, were never meant to walk with you to your next level. Let them fall away. Let what's misaligned dissolve. because in that space something else begins to emerge, a clarity, a calm, a quiet authority that doesn't need to justify itself. That kind of power doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it doesn't prove, it simply is. It walks into the room and shifts the energy without saying a word. And it was born the moment you stopped feeling guilty for choosing yourself. So from now on, you walk differently. You answer more slowly. You pause before committing. You sit with your truth before offering it. You stop running from discomfort and start using it as a compass. Because your time is not free, your energy is not endless, and your attention is a privilege. You don't give them away anymore. You direct them with clarity, with depth, with respect for who you are and who you're becoming. And now your no is sacred, not because it's loud, but because it's yours. And in that single honest word, no, you find everything you were looking for: freedom, focus, peace. You are no longer afraid of disappointing others. You are more afraid of disappointing yourself. And that shift changes everything.